All right, here we go. Hour number 2 of the Matt Murphy Radio Show in progress right now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Lots of you want to speak, and we want to get to each of you. I so appreciate the conversation that we have on a daily basis from 3 until 7 o'clock. Thank you so much for it. I appreciate your patience as well. I told you that it would be a busy Monday. We welcome Senator Jack Johnson in the first hour of the show. We still have Jason Weekly of the Davidson County GOP coming up a little bit later on in the show. And right now, we welcome back to the program Representative Monty Fritz, who joins us via our Murphy Show hotline, not only to talk about the legacy and life of Charlie Kirk, but also to talk about his candidacy for governor. I've not had an opportunity to talk to Monty since he made the big announcement. Representative Fritz, good afternoon. How are you, sir?
Hey, Matt, I'm honored to be with you today. Appreciate your time and what a last 5 days it's been.
Oh, man.
Anyone ever questioned that your one life could make such a difference? I think one of Charlie Kirk's enduring legacies is that God can take one human being and affect the entire world.
Amen.
And with the hurt, because it was like a gut punch for me. I remember I think this is going to be one of those things. You remember where you were, right? And it was as if someone had kicked me in the sternum when I heard what had happened, and we began to pray for him. And that's sad. My heart, my wife's knees, our hearts have just wept for the family. But the beauty of this that's come out of this horrible act, this assassination, has been just the proof that God can use one soul to make not just a nationwide, but a global difference.
Well, so well said, Monty, and I agree with it 100%. And I was just telling Senator Jack Johnson that, and we were discussing this, and obviously we are comforted by the fact, if you are a person of faith, you're comforted by the fact that Charlie was a person of faith. But it doesn't change that his precious wife lives the rest of her life on this earth without her husband, and her children grow up without their father, and now they have stories instead of memories. And that's what, turns sadness and sorrow and leaning on Christ to a little bit of anger, a little bit of frustration about how the other side is comporting their business in America nowadays. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you, brother. It makes me think of something, what you just said. On May 25th of 2005, I lost a soldier in Iraq, Alfred Barton Siler. There's a bridge down on 840 that's named for him. And I remember as we medevac Bart's body thinking, his daughter's not going to have someone to walk her down the aisle. She's not going to have her dad there when she graduates high school. And that hurt me. It still hurts me because he was my soldier, right? And that loss, I think, is part of the gut punch I felt when we heard this news. And it should give us a righteous indignation, I think, Matt. I think it's not just our words, it's our actions. I think our actions going forward have to address a couple things. I am an absolute free speech person, just like I'm an absolute Second Amendment person. If you want to say bad, ugly things about me, I'm okay with that. But I will tell you what has been the enduring hurt is to see college professors and staff that have decided that they can not only indoctrinate young minds, but they're going to intimidate them by the things they're saying. And I'll tell you, brother, I think the next governor needs to starve out that enemy within the gates, because this anti-American rhetoric that many of the paid public employees are expressing today goes far beyond what is free speech to something that is intimidation and bullying and threatening to many young people. And so I think there's some action coming out of this that we need to think more like Tennesseans and Americans as one family, rather than some of these crazy Marxist ideologies that infest our campuses.
Well, and I'm an absolutist too. I tell people all the time when they ask me about the First Amendment, I was like, I'm in the free speech business. I mean, it's what I do, right? It's what we do on a daily basis. We engage in that free, open exchange of ideas. But that doesn't mean that I can't say something that my employer will then come back and say, you know what, we think you're out. That is over the line or whatever. bottom line is this: no government entity is going to put people in jail for even saying the most heinous of things that do not I mean, obviously, you can't put people in direct harm's way. That's a bridge too far. However, that does not immune these folks. And I'm just fascinated, Monty, at the number of people that think they can say the most disgusting things online and their employers aren't going to respond by firing them.
Well, I think, Matt, you hit the nail on the head. You can say any ugly thing you want to me, and you should never be put in prison or jail for it, right? But it doesn't mean that the person who employs you can't decide that you're not beneficial to them. And in some cases, the state of Tennessee, I think we're going to have some responsibility to act. And to be honest, I'm a little disappointed in some of the leadership in some of the schools that we've allowed this culture to develop. We keep sending a message from the General Assemblies. We're not going to tolerate this wokeism and indoctrinating our children, our young people. And it's almost as if they're like, well, we don't have to listen to you.
Right.
And I, again, lots of passion in that, much like you, brother. I have, it hurts me, and that righteous indignation kicks in. But I do think there's a couple things that we can do, and I think some of this is addressed best in the budget, because one of the greatest performance measures and accountability measures that we can utilize in government is what you fund. And if you're not leading an organization effectively to create a culture where students of all backgrounds can come in and learn how to think for themselves, then maybe you're not accomplishing your job, and maybe we ought to look at who can do it better and maybe how we can better spend those dollars.
Speaking of jobs, Monty, when you and I first communicated via text, obviously it was before the horrific assassination of Charlie Kirk. We wanted to have you on, and we're going to do so. Plenty of time, obviously, between now and next year. But you made the decision, and I watched as you made the announcement on Chris Hand's show on this radio station that you are running for governor of the state of Tennessee. Just for those who have not heard, the elevator pitch, as they say. I mean, tell me why. I mean, tell me what has led you to this moment in time where you feel like you're compelled to run.
So I think two things, actually three, I guess, if you count them. Liberty and less government, if you count that as two. I think we're trending away from liberty in many ways in Tennessee, and I don't want to see that happen. Those native Tennesseans like me, we want to cling to that liberty that God has given us. And we see an expansion of government that I think most of us have a distaste for, an expansion of budget that goes along with that, revenue collection. And then just very basically, it's something I've prayed about for probably 8 or 9 months. I feel called to do it. And I know that's probably going to wig some people out to hear that. But my goodness, there is no way country boy from Rome County, Tennessee should ever announce he's going to run for governor unless he thinks that God is leading in that way. It would be an obscene and stupid thing to do. So that's not hey, this is going to be handed to me. This is a tasking that I'm going to work my boots off to get this message of liberty and less government out to the people of Tennessee. And I have a couple things that are important to me early on. I do want to get the budget request cycle. In 2019, Governor Haslam's last budget was $37.5 billion. The budget request this year was $59.5. That's a 59% increase. I want to see Tennesseans retain more of their money and the local governments retain more of their money. And I think I see a tendency to centralize things in Nashville and centralize decision-making, and I don't think that's healthy. I think secondly, and I'll stop with this one, Chris, so as I don't talk too much, I really think it's important to recalibrate government in Nashville. I think we have thousands of great Tennessee state employees. But I think there's a culture that has developed, and it's been demonstrated in this Hughes v. Lee appeal recently, that government doesn't think in Nashville that they're really bound by the Constitution, that we can it's a malleable object that we can move around and shift, and that's an important thought to me. And I think that the other part of that is many of the executives, senior level, from all the feedback I get within my district and other parts of the state, is often they just don't act like they think they work for the people in Tennessee. And so I think there's a recalibration needed. I've led some pretty complex things in nuclear business that I've worked in and learned how to lead people doing that. And I've led on the battlefield, and I'm okay making hard decisions. I think we need a little more country boy and a little less establishment politician, D.C. politician in politics in Tennessee, and I intend to bring that.
Listen, anytime we can bring more country boy to the party, I like it. I love that. So I'm all in on that. On the real quick, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds because we're going to have plenty of time to do that over the course of the next year. But on Hughes v. Lee, a lot of my listeners want to accuse or want to wag the finger at Skrmetti. I don't think Skrmetti's bound to defend the law passed by the General Assembly and signed by the governor. And I don't fault him so much on this as I do those that brought this to the table to begin with. Do you share that?
I think that if I understand your question, I bring the first fault to those racists 154 years ago that introduced a Jim Crow law that was probably targeting black men with shotguns.
100%.
Yeah, and so we agree on that. I think I like General Skrmetti. I really do. I talked to his office recently, and I started out, I like to do this. I said, the person I was talking to, I won't mention his name, I said, I love you, man, but y'all dead wrong on this thing. I think that we won probably a great victory for crushing a Jim Crow law, a Jim Crow era law with the verdict from the Chancery Court.
Agreed.
And then I think that we, the General Assembly, have failed the people of the state of Tennessee. I've carried a couple pieces of legislation for firearms law, kind of known for that. We passed a big thing this year that GOA says we're the best in the nation in firearms manufacturing, protecting against frivolous lawsuits. And I'm proud of that. But that whole intent to go armed really puts us at a presumption of guilt.
Mm-hmm.
It says you're guilty and you have to have an exception or an excuse or defense by some of the other laws. Well, that's inverted from the American way. The American way is we're presumed innocent until proven guilty. And so I think we had an opportunity to fix that and accept that. I would have welcomed the governor calling us in or ourselves calling ourselves into a special session to then correct the language. I think there's a huge Second Amendment Tennessee values win in this that we're really messing it up. And so, I've written a letter respectfully asking the Attorney General to talk to the other defendants, primarily Governor Lee, and don't do this. We're giving the Republican brand, a horrible look with this. And so I've been really vocal about it. I'll continue to be. I think I was hired to stand up for the rights of the folks I work for, and I think I ought to.
Yeah, my point, and we can talk about it down the road, but my point is Skrmetti can only go so far to try to convince Governor Lee to drop the case, and if the defendants refuse, then it's ultimately his responsibility to bring the case. My point being is that I hope and wish that the General Assembly will repair the language as best they can and get something to the governor, and I hope that Governor Billy would sign it.
I would hope so, too. I will tell you that, unfortunately, many of those that work against your rights are the same ones in this matter, are the same ones that have been working against them. I have state employees come into my office. I see state employees come into committees and testify openly against the rights of Tennesseans. And, we can have dissenting opinions about things, but when someone is on the clock basically lobbying against your right to keep and bear arms, I think that's important. I was listening to the news and all the hubbub about Trump sending guardsmen to Memphis. I used to be a National Guardsman. I think we've done this with the appeal, Matt, and I think this troubles me the most. I think that we have created a climate or a culture where we keep pushing on this. We're going to retain this intent to go armed. We've made the average Memphian less safe. We've made the average Nashvilleian less safe because if there's a little question of whether I should or shouldn't be able to defend myself, then we empower those predatory forces that cruise the streets in Memphis and in Nashville and even in place of Roane and Loudoun County, people that want to do bad things. And I think the safest citizenry is the armed citizenry. And so we've discouraged that. And I think one of the unintended consequences of what we've done with this appeal is we've made Memphians even less safe.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that was intentional, but I think there's still time to repent from that, recognize the mistake, and let's move the other direction toward where we honor our Creator endowed rights, and men and women can defend themselves. And I think that sends a strong message to that predatory faction that wants to do harm and bad things in our communities. You know, I spent some time in July down in Shelby County,
Mm-hmm.
and those folks in Orange Mound, they want to just be able to safely get out and go grocery shopping or go to the store, or go out and eat, and all those kinds of things.
Well, I think things are about to change over there, and hopefully for the better, particularly if Donald Trump and Governor Lee come to some sort of conclusion about what to do over there, and I hope that is coming very, very soon. Monty, I got to leave it there, and I'm sorry I do, but I look forward to many great conversations down the road as you've announced your candidacy for governor, and we'll be able to talk about many of these issues. We'll get you in studio very soon. I appreciate your time today.
Matt, I appreciate it. Go to Fritz4TN.com, Fritz4TN.com to learn more.
Thank you, Monty Fritz. I appreciate you. That's the representative from Roane County, running for governor of the state of Tennessee. Back after this. That's big news. We'll get into that momentarily. Super Talk 99.7 WT, and also big news. The United States president allowed for a strike. A second narco boat from Venezuela has been blown up as it was making its way to the United States. Look, you blow up enough boats with enough fentanyl on them, and maybe the narco terrorist will realize that perhaps it's not in their financial or best interest otherwise to send their poison to the United States of America. How about that? How about that? Cash me outside. How about that? 615-737-9986. Steve and Troy want to talk. Mike wants to talk as well. Several of you have been holding on the lines. I appreciate your calls. We're getting to them momentarily. I got 30 minutes of straight calls coming up right after the news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You know, I have to give Senator Heidi Campbell a bit of a verbal schooling as we continue on the show today. I would love to have her on to try to get her perspective, truly anyone's perspective, on exactly what the government's role is in protecting individuals that are being fired right now based on social media commentary. You do not have the right to employment in that way in the United States of America. The First Amendment does not protect you. You can't go into your boss's office and tell your boss anything you want your boss to hear and not expect there to be some form of reprisal. And you can't hide behind the First Amendment of the Constitution as a result. And I don't care if your boss is the University of Tennessee anyway. UT Knoxville has written, and by the way, congratulations to Randy Boyd, who is I guess the president of the university system. Congratulations to everyone involved in this decision making, whether it's UT, MTSU, ETSU, all of it. You cannot expect that you are going to continue to be employed. And if you do, you have a wrong position. Your position on the First Amendment is not correct. It just isn't. And I can help you out with that if you want to be. Well, I'll get into this statement in a moment. Many of you have held on for a long, long time, and I appreciate you. 615-737-9986. 615-737-9986 on the telephone lines. Steve is truly first up on the phone lines today. Steve, thank you for your call, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you. I appreciate your show, and thanks for taking my call. This has indirectly to do with the fate of Charlie Kirk as far as the reasoning and all of that behind it. I was noticing the other day that Charlie Kirk and Christ were about the same age when their lives were taken away. And both of those, in my opinion, were the result of a very power-hungry, narcissistic, evil contention of people. And so when I got to thinking about how has the American psychological aspect changed in my lifetime, and I'm quite old, I'm 80, I take a look at the simple fact that My wife has been in public education for about 40 plus years, school psychologist, English teacher, et cetera, Bible classes, and so on. But we have thought about writing a book for years called Working for the Enemy that talks about public schools and the corruption and brainwashing techniques of public schools. So theoretically, what I'm trying to point out is that 62 years ago, the American Communist Party stood up in front of Congress and read off the 45 bullet points that they hoped they could accomplish to change this country into a communist country. And of those first important bullet points were to take over education, take over the media, take over Hollywood, stamp out religion, and break up the family. And they've pretty well done most all of that. So I take a look back at, say, 25 years ago, Ward Churchill, who was a professor at the University of Colorado, was
I remember Ward Churchill well, yeah.
Due to his comments about 9/11. And so as I take a look today at these young people that are doing ridiculously crazy things, yes, social media is some gasoline on that fire. But for years, this fire has been coming from education. It just has. And I can't stress enough things like brainwashing. I was in college many, many decades ago, but one of the most important classes I ever took was called Applied Behavior Analysis, Dr. Bob Watson, and he spent 6 weeks on brainwashing and what all that involves, what the ultimate thing is, whether it's boot camp or whatever the case may be, or movies such as a long, long time ago, Manchurian Candidate or whatever. But remember, in Trump's first administration, Betsy DeVos was the head of the education world, and she was a huge fan of voucher schools. And that is the only way that we stop this ridiculous onslaught of lies that are being taught in schools all over, everywhere. If your Chevy's running better today than it was 40 years ago, it's because of competition from Toyota or whomever. And that same thing applies to public education. If they had some competition, then they couldn't get away with this as much as they do today. So, I feel terrible for Charlie and his family and so on. And I like Fox News' approach to publicizing the wonderful things about him. But I disagree somewhat with the outcome of all this, because violent behavior is rubber stamped all over our society today, and it has to stop. And sometimes it's not by compromising, it's by being very stern, I would say. But we're in dire straits. My dad was in World War II. If he was back here, he's been dead for 43 years, but if he was back here today for a week, he would be sick at what this country has become rather than what all those soldiers fought for in the 40s. So just some thoughts.
Steve, thank you for sharing those thoughts with us, brother. I appreciate you very much.
Remember, the biggest enemy to this country is not Russia or China. It is public education. Thank you very much.
Well, I certainly believe that public education needs a further infusion of competition in order to save itself. And I've been long saying that. And I would agree with you. A lot to unpack during that telephone call. We appreciate you making it, Steve. Mike is next in Old Hickory. Mike, how are you?
Was that an AI robot that just talked to you? So eloquent. Just everything. He was 80 years old and talked to you so eloquent.
Top of his game. Top of his game. Let's follow it up. Let's follow it up with a good one today, Mike.
All right, here we go. Now, we've got Bill Lee, we've got Boxer Blackburn, and we've got, guess who? Senator Haggerty, who wants to be president. You know where they were about an hour ago? Sitting behind the desk of Donald Trump. We're going to have national troops, you call them national or federal, whatever. I call them National Guard. We're going to Memphis, Matt, and we're going to clean up the mess there. And those three leaders of our state, well, they're begging him to do it. So what is your opinion that the governor of Tennessee, Bill Haggerty, and Marsha Blackburn, who is supposedly going to be our next governor, standing there, and she's standing kind of behind Bill Haggerty. She's trying to get her face out, but Donald Trump signed it. The troops are coming to Memphis. Do you like it or not?
I think that the criminal behavior that has existed in Memphis for a long, long time and the inability of the local authorities over there has demonstrated a necessity for the governor of the state of Tennessee to take action with the support of the President of the United States of America. So with the governor's support of the presidential action, I believe that it is time that we bring in further backup for those officers on the streets in Memphis that are desperate in their attempt to clean up the criminal behavior that's going on over there. Yes, I support it.
Isn't that sad that Tennesseans, we Tennesseans now can't even take care of our own? We have to now beg the president to come in and save us. That's my thing, is that, you and I talk about National Guard, federal troops, whatever, and red mayors and blue mayors. That is a deep, deep blue mayor in Memphis. We have a blue mayor in Nashville. So would you support the National Guard coming to Nashville?
If the governor supported it, I mean, it's the governor is the linchpin in all of this for my support, Mike. If the governor of the state of Tennessee determines that a local municipality, which enjoys the autonomy that they enjoy based on the state, right? The state is the swing here. The state created the federal government. The state also created the municipalities. So if the state determines through the leadership of the executive that those local governing bodies are not protecting the citizens and it has risen to the level of an emergency, then it is up to the state to take action. And if that entails assisting the president in calling up the National Guard, I mean, the state could do it without the assistance of the President of the United States, but I think they're doing it in conjunction with the President of the United States. So I support it.
Okay. So therefore, then Nashville, we can do it, but then we're going to have to go to Chattanooga and Knoxville down the road, because that's where the infection keeps happening.
It's all about, I don't know that the situation has risen to emergency levels in the city of Nashville. But it's getting there.
Will.
But it's getting there. But it's getting there.
But it will.
Yeah.
And so, in other words, so now the troops are going to go into Memphis, and when it gets cleaned up, what chance do you think that Marsha Blackburn, who wants to be governor, and she's supposedly going to be the, just nobody's going to run against her. She's the titular head. That's it. She's governor, blah, blah, blah. No way. Because she stood there, Bill Haggerty stood there, and Billy stood there with Donald Trump in the White House today, an hour ago, and said, we need your help to solve our problems.
All right. Well, I mean, And we're going to get it. And if you believe that criminal behavior, and Mike, thank you for the call. We're kind of tilling the same ground now. If you believe that the criminal behavior in Memphis has risen to the level of an emergency, and I would suggest the drugs and the crime and the other criminal activity that's going on there. I mean, obviously, Memphis is the most violent city in the United States of America, according to FBI data. So if you believe that, my position has always been simple. The President of the United States does not have the authority to usurp what the governor of any given state wants to do regarding the National Guard, and I think you would be hard-pressed to demonstrate that in court. So if J.B. Pritzker wants to politicize the awful, horrific criminal behavior and the killings and the murders that go on in Chicago, Illinois, for the purpose of politicalization so as to not watch as Donald Trump assists him in cleaning up that city, he can do so, sadly, to the detriment of his citizens. But Governor Bill Lee saw the better way. And I've not talked to anyone in his office, and I don't know what his thought is on it, but it's obvious that Governor Bill Lee has given his blessing with all of this, and I applaud that. And I think it's time that Memphis was a jewel of a city. I've been to Memphis many times. I went to Memphis long before I got into Nashville, Tennessee. And I was saddened at the idea that I couldn't hang around Memphis after dark. I couldn't, you can't enjoy Beale Street. I mean, y'all know, I don't have to tell you. It's about time that someone put some meat on those bones, as they say. 51 after the hour, more calls coming up in a moment. Indeed, he did. A lot of reaction to this thing. I'm telling you, listen, the governor's presence and the governor's sign-off on this is everything that I needed to know about it. And it's my understanding, I mean, the governor is a part of this, right? So with the governor on board, I'm on board. That's the linchpin in terms of allowing the federal government to have access to the National Guard. And if the governor does that, I'm all about it. 615-737-9986. Your thoughts on this? David wants to talk for a minute about teachers. David, thank you for your call. Thank you for your patience. How are you?
I'm good, Matt. How you doing?
I'm well. Thank you.
Good. Well, I've made this point before, and the reason why we see so many of these young kids who've been normalized to political violence is the people who perpetrated political violence in the 70s and 80s, i.e. people like Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn, are the people who write curriculum that are in education departments literally in every university and college across this country. And in turn, people who want to be teachers learn this garbage and then go out and are at every level of public education from K through college. Like these Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn and the Weather Underground, they weren't protesters. They were literal communist terrorists who killed people.
Yes.
Bill Ayers, Bernadine Dorn only avoided prison because of technicalities. Chesa Boudin, that black job who was the DA out there in San Francisco, his parents were involved in the Brinks robbery where they killed 2 cops and a security guard. So these are the people who are writing the curriculum that is molding the teachers of the futures that are going out, like I said, into every level of public education.
Well, and it's high time that. Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Is it any wonder that violence is normalized?
Wow, that's right. I mean, and it's high time that we get a handle on all of that in our educational institutions. David, I'm sorry I do, but I got to run. We're getting to the news right now. Bobby and Mark and Carol and Kevin will get to you as well. Plus, Jason Weekly with the Davidson County GOP will talk to us. A lot of memorials, a lot of vigils, a lot of prayer vigils popping up for Charlie Kirk. We saw one in Franklin last night. We saw one in Sumner County last night. I'm hearing about numerous ones tonight, to include one in Murfreesboro. Haven't seen anything in Davidson County yet. Okay. I mean, I guess that's their prerogative. But we will talk to Jason about activity of the conservative nature in Davidson County on the way next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.